In the winter of 1856, in a remote corner of southeastern Ohio, 3 newborn boys entered the world under circumstances so extraordinary that medical professionals still debate their case in hushed tones today. Born in the hidden basement of a Quaker meeting house during one of the most dangerous nights in Underground Railroad history, these triplets developed abilities that defied every known law of human psychology and physiology. For over a century, their descendants have guarded secrets about what those boys could do, secrets that, if revealed, would force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the limits of human perception. What I'm about to share with you has never been told outside the family records, never documented in any official medical journal, and never spoken of in any academic circle. The evidence has been deliberately buried. But tonight, the truth finally comes to light. Before we dive deeper into this chilling account that begins in the shadows of America's most secretive rescue network, I need to know something about you. This channel isn't for everyone, only for those brave enough to confront mysteries that challenge the very foundations of what we believe possible. If you're one of the few who can handle stories that blur the line between documented history and inexplicable phenomena, hit that subscribe button right now. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me what state you're listening from. I want to know where my fellow mystery seekers are gathering tonight. Because what you're about to hear happened not in some distant mystical land, but right here in America, in communities that might be disturbingly close to your own. The story I'm about to tell you began on a bitter February night when 3 lives entered this world in the most unlikely place imaginable, setting in motion events that would perplex doctors and scientists for generations to come. The town of Cedar Mills, Ohio, barely deserved the name in 1856. With a population hovering around 300 souls, it consisted of little more than a cluster of modest homes, a general store, a blacksmith shop, and the simple brick meeting house that served the local Quaker community. Unlike their more demonstrative Christian neighbors, the Society of Friends in Cedar Mills practiced their faith quietly, their plain dress and solemn demeanor reflecting a deep commitment to simplicity and, most importantly, to the radical belief that all human beings were equal in the eyes of God. This conviction had transformed their meeting house into something far more dangerous than a place of worship. It had become Station 14 on the Underground Railroad, a crucial stop for freedom seekers making their way north from Kentucky and Virginia. Elder Samuel Whitmore, a man whose weathered hands spoke of decades working the soil and whose piercing gray eyes held secrets that could hang half the congregation, had been conducting this clandestine work for nearly 8 years. Beneath the meeting house's plain wooden floors lay a carefully concealed basement, accessed through a trapdoor hidden beneath the speaker's platform. The basement itself was a marvel of desperate engineering. Dug by hand over months of careful work, it stretched nearly the full length of the building above. Thick wooden beams supported the ceiling, while ventilation came through an ingenious system of hollow fence posts that appeared decorative but carried fresh air to those hiding below. On any given week, anywhere from 3 to 15 freedom seekers might shelter there, some for a single night, others for weeks, as they waited for safe passage to the next station. February of 1856 had been particularly treacherous. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 had emboldened slave catchers, who now roamed freely through Ohio with legal authority to reclaim human property. Professional bounty hunters like the notorious Garrett brothers had been spotted in the area for weeks, offering substantial rewards for information about Underground Railroad operations. The tension in Cedar Mills was so thick you could almost taste it. Every unexpected visitor, every knock at the door after dark, every unusual sound could signal discovery and imprisonment. It was against this backdrop of fear and secrecy that a young woman had arrived at the meeting house 3 days earlier. She had given her name only as Ruth, claimed to be 19 years old, and was obviously with child, very much with child. Samuel Whitmore had taken one look at her swollen belly and known immediately that she wouldn't be traveling any further north for quite some time. What he hadn't expected was just how soon that child would arrive, or how profoundly its arrival would change everything they thought they knew about human nature. Ruth had come from a plantation in northern Kentucky, she told them in whispered conversations during her first nights in the basement. She spoke with the careful diction of someone who had been taught to read, unusual for someone in her circumstances, and carried herself with a dignity that impressed even the stoic Quakers. But there was something else about her, something that made people uneasy without quite understanding why. She seemed to know things, small things but disturbing in their accuracy. She would know when someone was approaching the meeting house long before any sound could be heard. She would refuse food that later proved to be spoiled, though it had appeared perfectly fresh. Most unsettling of all, she would sometimes look directly at whoever was speaking and quietly contradict their words, not argumentatively, but with the calm certainty of someone who simply knew better. "That man who brought the supplies yesterday," she had said to Samuel's wife, Martha, on her second evening there. "He told you his name was Williams, didn't he? And that he was from Lancaster?" Martha had nodded, confused. "His name isn't Williams," Ruth had continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "And he's never been to Lancaster in his life. I don't know why he lied to you, but he did." Martha had dismissed this as the paranoid rambling of a frightened pregnant woman until 2 days later when the man's real identity was discovered. He was indeed using a false name and had been asking suspicious questions about the meeting house's activities. The night of February 23, 1856, began like many others in Cedar Mills, cold, dark, and deceptively quiet. Samuel Whitmore had been conducting his evening prayers when a soft knock came at the meeting house door, followed by the agreed-upon signal. 3 quick raps, a pause, then 2 more. But something felt wrong from the moment Samuel lifted the heavy wooden beam that barred the door. The freedom seeker who stumbled inside was a man named Joshua, someone Samuel had helped before. But Joshua's usual calm demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. "They're coming," Joshua gasped, his breath forming white clouds in the frigid air. "The Garrett brothers and at least 6 others. They've got dogs and they know about this place." Someone talked. He paused, his eyes darting toward the basement entrance. "They're maybe 2 hours behind me. Probably less." Samuel felt his blood turn to ice. In 8 years of underground railroad work, they had never faced a direct threat like this. The meeting house had always been considered safe, protected by the community's reputation for honesty and their careful operational security. But if the Garretts were coming with dogs and advanced knowledge of the basement, someone had indeed betrayed them. The immediate problem was evacuation. There were currently 7 people sheltering in the basement, including Ruth, who had been experiencing intermittent labor pains for most of the day. Martha Whitmore had been monitoring her condition, but had hoped the birth wouldn't come for at least another week. Mother Nature, however, seemed to have other plans. As if summoned by Joshua's words, a low moan echoed from beneath the floorboards. Martha's face went pale. "Samuel," she whispered, "Ruth's time has come. Right now." The next few hours unfolded like a nightmare carved from ice and fear. While Samuel and 2 other men worked frantically to evacuate the other 6 freedom seekers through the meeting house's hidden northern tunnel, a hand-dug passage that emerged nearly a quarter-mile away in a dense grove of oak trees. Martha and her daughter Rebecca descended into the basement to attend to Ruth's labor. What they found in that